Hi everybody, this is a review video of first graders of Prisoners of Geography, and we're doing a USA chapter. Okay, so here it says location, location, location. So it's USA has really advantageous location in terms of geography. So if you won the lottery and were looking to buy a country to live in, the first one the estate agent would show you would be the United States of America. So let's say that you won the lottery and you have a lot of money, and now you want to move into a different country to live in. So maybe the first country, the estate agent. So here, the estate agent is the broker, right? Broker try to help people to find their job, find their house. So you have money, you're looking for a new country to live in. Maybe the first country that broker would show you would be the United States of America. Why? Because this country has advantageous location. So Twain was referring to erroneous reporting of his death, but he could have been talking about the over-reporting of demise of the USA. So here on page 1, here's a quotation of Mark Twain. Right? Mark Twain is a famous American writer. He once mentioned that reports of my death have been greatly exaggerated. When Twain was still alive, medias, newspapers, radio, and news, they reported a lot of times of death of Mark Twain even though he was still alive. And maybe that was a mistake, and or when the writer published a book and your book became unpopular, when no one read your book, people say that Twain is dead. His book is not interesting anymore. So I guess these medias reported a lot of times of Twain's death when he was still alive. So he he mentions that the erroneous reporting, maybe the errors. He might be mentioning the errors of the media reporting about his death. And at the same time, he could have been talking about the over-reporting of demise. So demise also means death of USA. He might be like the over-reporting of the death of USA. So a lot of times media, radio and news, they mention that USA is dead. USA is finished. USA is not as powerful as it used to be. USA is not as rich as it used to be. Oftentimes report talk about the death of USA, but Mark Twain might be mentioning that that's over-reporting, meaning that the death of USA is almost impossible. It's impossible for this country to be finished because of a location. This country has two advantageous location in terms of geography, so it's almost impossible for this country to fail. So some of the example of the advantageous location of the country is it's in a wonderful neighborhood. So this country has a wonderful neighborhood. Views are marvelous. The scenery of this country is just marvelous, wonderful. Views are wonderful, and there are some terrific water features. So the water resources, such as like river and oceans, just wonderful. You can use rivers to the development of the trade, to the development of the entire country. You can use ocean in order to generate the power, or the transport links are excellent. So transport links such as like a train, airplane, train, airplane, and road are just excellent inside. So you can use this transport link for the development of the country and the neighborhood countries. Neighbors just great, no trouble at all. They have like Canada, Mexico, Dominican Republic, Paraguay, Brazil, Argentina. These neighborhoods, they are really just great. No trouble with this country at all. So If you broke this living space up into numerous sections, it would considerably lower its value. So this living space refers to USA. If you divide this country into several sections, it will probably lower its value. And especially if the tenant did not all speak the same language and pay the rent in different currencies. So the tenant are the resident, right? People who live in your house with paying rent is a tenant, right? So if this tenant, if they don't speak the same language and if they pay the rent in different money, it will significantly, considerably lower the value of the country. But as one home and for one family, it can be bettered. But USA, the country is not divided. People have the idea of this country as a one home. Also, they have this idea of one family. An entire all the people inside speak the same language, English, and they use the same currency, dollar. So this country, it can be bettered, meaning that it is the best. So there are 50 American states, but they add up to one nation. In a way, the 28 sovereign states of European Union never can. So in America, you have 50 states. You have 50 states, and these 50 states, they add up as a one nation. They work as a one nation, whereas in Europe, you have 28 sovereign states. Sovereign is independent. Right? In Europe, you have 28 independent countries in European continent, and these independent sovereign states, they don't work as a one nation. No, they have separate national identity in Europe. So most of the European Union states have a national identity far stronger, more defined than any American state. So each and every one of these 28 European independent states, people from this each state have a really strong national identity, more stronger than American people. And so it is easy to find a French person who is French first and European second, or one who pays little allegiance to the idea of Europe. But an American identifies with their union in a way few Europeans do theirs. So if you go to Europe, and you can easily find a French person who identify as a French first. You know, these French people, they put priority on being a French first. Then maybe they identify themselves as a European secondly. So they pays little allegiance. They don't really pay attention. People really don't care about the union of entire European continent. Right? People don't really care about being a European. But an American citizen, they identify themselves with a quite strongly, unlike the other, like only a few Europeans do theirs. Only a few Europeans identify themselves as a common Europeans. So this is explained by the geography and by the history of the unification of the USA. So this difference between American and European, Americans identify themselves as a strong one nation, whereas European states, they each have a strong individual identity, national identity. This difference between Europeans and Americans can be explained by geography. It can be explained by the history of the unification of USA. So painting this vast country in bold, broad brushstroke from east to west, you can divide it into three parts. So if you draw this country, So if you paint this country with a bold broad brush stroke from east to west. If you draw this country from east to west, you can divide the country into three parts, right? You can divide this country into three parts, roughly, here. So first, there is an east coast plain leading to the Appalachian Mountains, area well watered by short but navigable rivers and with fertile soils. So first, you have the east coast plain. East coast plain is here, right? This area. First, you have east coast plain leading to Appalachian Mountains. So now you have Appalachian Mountains here. And this area is well watered by short but navigable rivers. And this Appalachian area and East Coast Plain area, they have rivers. They have short rivers. And the river is quite navigable rivers. Navigable means it's calm and peaceful, so you can move around trade product on the river, you can move around people on the river. And with a fertile soil. And this area has soils. And the soil of this area is quite fertile, right? So fertile area. Fertile means very productive, right? Productive and a good quality. So if you plant your crops in this area, you can plant your wheat, you can plant your rice. You are harvesting a lot of those products because the soil is very fertile in this area. Then, heading further west, you have the Great Plains, stretching all the way to Rocky Mountains, and within this section lies the Mississippi Basin with its network of huge navigable rivers flowing into the Mississippi River all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico, which is sheltered by the peninsula of Florida and several islands. Then moving further west, if you move west from East Coast Plain, you have the Great Plains. If you move west from East Coast Plain, you have the Great Plain here in the center, and stretching all the way to Rocky Mountains. And this Great Plain is connected to the Rocky Mountains. Rockies here. The Rocky Mountain. And within this section lies the Mississippi Basin. And in the Great Plain, you have Mississippi Basin with a network of huge navigable river flowing into the Mississippi River. So you have Mississippi River and Mississippi Basin area is here. Next to the river, nearby area surrounding the river is the basin. So you have Mississippi Basin and network of huge navigable rivers. So many rivers running inside this country connected to the Mississippi rivers all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. So this ocean, this sea off the coast of the United States is called the Gulf of Mexico. And this Mississippi River lead up to or connected to a Gulf of Mexico. So using this river, Mississippi River, you can move around your items and you can move around your cargoes and product, and you can even export many things to other foreign countries using Mississippi River and using the Gulf of Mexico. And this Gulf of Mexico is sheltered, protected by the peninsula of Florida. So you have Peninsula Florida on your east side here. You have Florida area. And Florida area and several islands. So Florida and several islands are protecting the Mississippi River, Mississippi Harbor, right? So what it means is that in America, you have so many typhoons seasonally. You have typhoons and tornadoes and strong wind so many times because the country is so huge. You have many typhoons, tornadoes, strong wind. And this small island and Florida Peninsula is protecting the harbor in around like Louisiana in the Mississippi area. So you can securely do your trade. You can securely do your export and import with other foreign countries because of this location. And once over the massive mountain range that is Rockies, and if you go over the Rockies, right? If you go over the Rocky Mountains, you get to the desert. Okay, move over to the Rockies, you arrived in the desert. Okay, let me draw it one more time. So you have Rockies here, and you go over Rockies. Then you get to the desert, the Sierra Nevada mountains, and that area is the Sierra Nevada mountains. Okay, the Sierra Nevada mountains, desert area around here, over the Rockies, desert, and you have a narrow coastal plain, and you have a little bit of narrow coastal plain here. Okay, and finally to the shore of the Pacific Ocean. Now you get to arrive to a Pacific Ocean. And to the north, above the Great Lakes, lies the Canadian Shield, the world's largest area of Precambrian rock, much of which forms a barrier to human settlement. So up to the north, we move up to the north here in northern side, and above the Great Lake. Great Lake is around here. Okay, above the Great Lake to the north, you have a Canadian Shield. So you have the Canadian Shield area to the north. Okay, Canadian Shield, and the world's largest area of rock, Precambrian rock. So Canadian Shield is made of rock which is very, very extremely old. So in Cambrian period was even long time ago, and this period even before the Cambrian, pre-Cambrian rock. So this rock is made of in pre-Cambrian era, which is a long time ago, and which forms a barrier to human settlement. So this rock, Precambrian rock, as a barrier to human settlement. This Canadian Shield is too high and too cold and too barren. So the humans cannot really make a settlement around this Canadian Shield area. So it works as a barrier. So if you have any enemy try to invade this country from the northern side, it's almost impossible to invade from northern side because of the Canadian Shield. And if you move to the southwest, there's desert. And toward the southwest area, this is connected to South America. But the thing is that this area has desert. So it's not easy to cross this desert. So geography has determined that if a political entity could get to and then control the land from sea to shining sea, it would be a great power, the greatest history has ever known. So this geography gave this country huge amount of advantage. So this geography made a decision that if a political entity, if any stable government, if any stable government can arrive to this country and control this land from sea to shining sea. So the sea to shining sea is quite famous nickname for this country. So sea here refers to usually the Atlantic Ocean, and the shining sea maybe is the Pacific Ocean. So this is a nickname of USA. The land from sea to the shining sea refers to USA, another nickname of this country. So if there is any stable government arrive this country and control this country successfully, it will be a great power because it has really great geographic advantage. Maybe the greatest power the history has ever known. And considering the continent is 3,000 miles from coast to coast, this was achieved in astonishingly quick time. So I guess the distance between east coast to west coast of this country is around like 3,000 miles. So if you think about this 3,000 miles of long distance, the unification of this country is achieved really quickly. Okay, and I guess this is where we finished last time. So we'll continue our lesson next time. And you guys did a good job for participating, and I appreciate it for watching this review video. Okay, good job, everybody. See you next time. Okay, bye bye. Bye. Thank you.